Hello to the curious and thoughtful. It's Ellie here again for my little daily installment. Anyone who knows me even a tiny little bit knows that I absolutely love my pets, these ones right here. The kitten or cat, well, she has actually just recently turned 4. That's Smudgy. And Lolo is the dog. And as you can see, they are besties. I'm actually looking at the picture of them right now, and they are so adorable. I just love that photo. It's one of my favorite recent photos, and it's one of the latest photos that I took in the old house just before we moved. It's only just from a few weeks ago. However, I have circulated that photo all over the place because they look like besties and they look like they're having a meaningful, deep conversation, which who knows, they probably were. But I had a dream about Lolo in the past week, and I think it ties in really well to today's show, and I'm going to tell you about it in a moment. However, first, I'm going to sort of, explain what's going to happen next in today's episode. Basically, I have let the pressure out when it comes to my life. I've let the pressure out of the tires a little bit. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to talk to you any less, because I find that talking to you is a joy for me. I get as much out of knowing that you're there, which is the reason why I love knowing that you're here. And I tell you this every time I do an episode. But I get a lot out of knowing that you are here with me, probably as much as you do watching, maybe even more. I don't know, because I just keep coming back, don't I? And so I keep going, even though I have let the tires out a little. I still feel as though I want to connect with you every day as much as I can anyway. There'll be the odd day where I can't, but mostly I'd like to on a daily basis. It's kind of like my little injection of something cool anyway in my life. I'm also really informed because I do stay up to date when it comes to the news, local and international. So wherever you are in the world, I probably tapped into a little bit of that. And I know that most of the viewers here come from the Americas, primarily North America, but there's also people in Europe and Asia. And actually we're covering lots of bases at the moment. The international aspect of this channel has, it's diversified a lot over the past few months, and I'm actually really thrilled. There are even people who are watching me dubbed in their own local language since YouTube's been able to do that, because I can actually see that in the back office statistics that there are people who are watching me in their local language. So I'm really grateful for that. But I am still informed to the best of my ability, and I kind of imagine how hard it is for people who are deeply trapped in this noise that we're currently immersed in, because they haven't been able to release themselves, or they don't know how, or they don't even recognize that it's possible, or they don't recognize that they want to, or that they might need to. They're still trapped. Just this week, for example, because, I am informed, so I do look at the news every day, even if I don't talk about it. But just this week, there's conflicts all over the world that are flaring up internationally. Some of them involve the very countries that, you might live in. And so for that, it's more of a personal thing. There's also those political fights that never seem to end, ever, ever, ever. They just go on and on and on. And then even something that's supposed to be relatively benign, like the world of technology, for example, which I'm using as an actual example today. It promises all kinds of revolutionary things this week. For example, artificial intelligence, is the revolutionary thing of the moment. And that's, this week there's news articles about it transforming our work lives, again, because it's always promising that. Although somehow we still manage to work harder and harder regardless of how much technology is there to help us. Have you noticed that? And also it's integrating into our creativity, which kind of translates into maybe replacing us, creatively speaking. That's a bit of a hot potato, and also it's involved in governance more and more, which sounds very invasive. But these are all revolutionary things apparently. It sounds a little bit like the hype that happened when Apple first invented the iPhone. Remember when the iPhone was being promised that it would be something that would just make your life so extraordinarily easier? Does life feel easier now that we have the iPhone? That's okay, I'll wait. I'll wait. Apart from AI, tech is also talking about robotics. The usual thing like the autonomous taxis, which sounds a bit yikes, to be honest. Having a taxi drive you around with no human at the wheel. Also the humanoid robots, which I kind of secretly suspect are mostly female. I won't explain any further. And then things like military robots, which is another yikes moment, I think. I wonder how far that's going to go, and whether the prospect of our life and death are actually going to be based on the decision-making of some kind of a robot. I don't know. And then, of course, there's all the other stuff that claims to be good for us that technology is talking about in this week's news. So there are new battery materials that are being developed for vehicles and aircraft. Okay. There's some high temperature energy storage sort of tools of some kind. I don't exactly know what they are, but they're supposed to help with climate change. Except, I don't know, high temperature energy somethings just sounds like it might be an explosion waiting to happen sometime in the future, a bit like those big high capacity batteries that are sometimes blowing up in people's living rooms that they use for their e-bikes and things like that. And then there's all this biotech talk at the moment as well. But it basically boils down to technology being part of this big revolutionary framework. The thing is, I don't remember ever asking for there to be a revolution. Have you ever asked for a revolution? And that makes me wonder, why is there a revolution of technology taking place that nobody has asked for? In addition to that, though, every single story in the news seems to be urgent. The international conflicts are urgent, the politics is urgent, the technology stuff is urgent, and all the other in-between things that are also appearing in the news are urgent as well. Everything is urgent. Everything demands our attention. And even when the news isn't right there in front of our line of vision, there's all the other things too. There's the busy family life and just trying to make ends meet, trying to be able to afford everything, trying to raise children, trying to be good family members, good neighbours, good friends, trying to get from A to B without, smashing your car or going through a red light or forgetting something at home. And the bills and the commitments and the timekeeping and everything. Trying to cook a healthy meal for yourself. It all mounts up. There's so much noise and it's just exhausting. And so that's why today I thought I would try something new. And it might end up being the beginning of something. I don't know, but I've written a letter. I've written a letter, and I've written it not just for me, but perhaps for all of us, whoever it resonates with, who wants to hold it as their own. So it's, I guess it's a letter to the collective. And this letter today is about silence and noise. And I'm calling it a survival letter. So I'm going to read this letter and we'll just see where this takes us. Here it is. This is a letter to the collective on noise and silence. It's a letter of survival. This is a letter to all of us. Everywhere we turn, there's noise. Not just the obvious kind. Not just the traffic or the chatter or the endless pinging of our phones. There's also a subtle kind of noise that creeps up on us. It's the pressure to react. The pressure to have an opinion, the pressure to keep up with everything. It's a hum that never stops, and it wears us down in ways that we don't always notice. I have in the past caught myself reaching for my phone in the middle of the night, not because I needed anything, but because the silence felt uncomfortable. That's how deep the conditioning goes. Even rest feels wrong unless it's filled with something. But here's the truth. Silence isn't empty. It's not a gap to be filled. It's a space that provides renewal. It restores us. It's like the pauses that we don't realize are there between each musical note that give our favorite songs the power to touch our heart and become so very memorable. And when we lose that silence, we lose the chance to hear ourselves. Just like an endless note with no pauses would destroy the music, endless noise in our lives prevents us from truly hearing our own simple truth. The world is engineered to keep us scrolling and reacting and consuming. But silence is still here. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's waiting in the cracks. We find it when we close our laptops, when we leave our earbuds at home, and when we let the room be still for a moment longer than feels comfortable. Here in Australia, we commemorate the fallen soldiers every year. On a day that we call Anzac Day, many Australians wake up before sunrise and walk out to the ends of their driveways or onto their balconies with a candle lit in commemoration of the bravest among us. We listen to the official Anzac Day last post, and then we simply stand in silence for 2 minutes and watch the sunrise. It can feel a bit strange standing in silence in the dark in our pajamas and holding a single candle of light. But it's also incredibly healing to remember the truth that sits inside that silence. So here's an invitation for us, the collective. Tonight, before we scroll one more time, before we check one more feed, let's stop. Just for 2 minutes. No sound, no screen, no input of any kind. Let it feel awkward. Let it feel like it's a withdrawal. That awkwardness is the doorway. That's the place where we start to hear our collective voice again. It isn't about rejecting the world or pretending that we can escape from it. It's about remembering that silence is survival. It's the ground we stand on when the noise tries to sweep us away. And so, this is our letter, the letter to the collective. It's signed in silence and it's carried through the noise. The quiet exists even when we forget. It's for all of us and each of us, and will always be that way. It's ours. Thanks for listening. If you ever want to revisit this letter, it's available as a blog post on my website. I've attached a link in the description for today's show. So, let me tell you about this week's dream that I had, which was about Lolo the dog, my beautiful dog Lolo. In my dream, she ran out into a busy highway and I could hear all of the traffic. It was terrifying in the moment. I called out to her, but she couldn't hear me because of all the noise. She actually became really afraid, and instead of coming to me like she normally would, because she is a bit of a mummy's girl, she crouched down in the middle of the road and she was just frozen still. The traffic noise in my dream, I remember it was really deafening. It was kind of like Shanghai at noon. You can just imagine the mayhem and the noise and the chaos. But I felt that I really had to save her from being run over because the sound of traffic was overwhelming, and I knew that it was inevitable that she would be run over. So I decided to step into the traffic to be able to get her. And the thing is, I looked left and I looked right to see if I could figure out how to dodge that traffic. And when I did, I realized there was no cars. It was just noise. There were no cars on the street at all, and the street was completely empty. And then I woke up. So, I don't know, am I right? Here's the question. Was this a signal? Am I right about that? And if not, what do you think that the dream was trying to say? Because I've been thinking about this dream for a few days, and I just feel perhaps it was about noise rather than reality. Am I right, or do you think it may have meant something else? Leave a comment if you think you can help solve this puzzle. Before I go, just remember, if we can hold the silence together, even for a moment, then you know what happens? The noise doesn't win. We win. Welcome to the new world. This is Ellie Dreams Down Under. I love knowing you're here, and I'll see you in my dreams.